Our group is going to be discussing environmental science, in particular the environmental effects of the slaughter industry. Environmental science is an academic field that integrates physical, biological, and information sciences to the study of the environment and the solution of the environmental problems. The United States meat industry is the largest segment of agriculture. Every day we are impacted because we are consuming their products for food. In 2017, the meat and poultry industry processed about 9 billion chickens, 32 million cattle and calves, 2 million lambs, and 120 million hogs. By this, the U.S. meat industry is able to feed 326 million Americans, thus being a very big portion of our lives. While the industry is necessary to feed Americans, it causes a lot of pollution, which ultimately affects the world climate. Currently, we know that the slaughter industry is very unsanitary and can be inhumane. With that being said, most of the meat ends up going in the trash. We also feel that due to millions of harmful gas emissions produced, the water efficiency provided, the pollution, and its overall sustainability, the slaughter industry's effects on the climate are detrimental.
So CAFOs are concentrated animal feeding operations that contain from 1,000 animals to 1,000,000 animals in a small area. And they're usually called mega farms, and usually they're animals that are kept without sunlight, vegetation, and not really an area to move around, especially for smaller animals like chickens. It's controversial because it's inhumane. I mean, for 45 days to a whole year, animals are kept in the dark until they have to go and be slaughtered. And they are living in their feces, and it's not beautiful at all. And their only one purpose is to feed us. In America, we consume about 26 billion pounds of beef per year, and a cow consumes about 11,000 gallons of water per year. So scientists are trying to work on a way to make our meat artificial, and we're growing our meat in labs. Basically, they take the cells from the cow, and they add the nutrients it needs to grow. And basically, the serums are about $850 an ounce. That's why it's so expensive to grow or artificially grow our meat. But we're working on it. You know, it could be a way to go greener for us and the U.S.
During this current time, there have been several motives to reduce the amount of greenhouse emissions that are released into the air. Yet the main air polluter is not Exxon or Shell, but instead the slaughterhouses. According to ScienceTime.com, animal agriculture is responsible for 13 to 18% of human-caused greenhouse gas emissions globally, and less in developed countries. Some of the gases that are emitted are methane and nitrous oxide due to animals such as cows, buffalo, and sheep burping and passing gas. Leading the gas emissions has been agriculture, in particular farming. Farming is responsible for the equivalent of 574 million metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions in the US. The harmful amount continues to be the underlying cause of why the climate is slowly turning weaker and weaker. Grain.org states that by 2050, we must reduce global emissions by 38 billion tons to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The fact that this industry is having to be given limits is insane. Overall, the damaging amount of gas emissions that have been produced by the industry must eventually be diminished through the reduction of production and consumption of meat in order to lessen their climate footprint.
When we're talking about water consumption, it takes about 1,800 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of ground beef. And that's 4 times more to produce a pound of chicken, and 10 times more to produce a pound of wheat. Cows drink up to 5 pounds of water a day to produce 1 pound of milk in return, which is kind of bad. Cow manure makes up 2/3 of all nitrous dioxide pollution in the world, and Americans use 17 billion pounds of nitrogen fertilizer to grow feed for cows for the beef industry. And once this nitrogen fertilizer runs off into streams and rivers and lakes, it creates massive algae blooms that take up all the oxygen in the lakes and rivers and kills all the plants and animals living inside.
I'll be talking about the eutrophication and pollution. Eutrophication is the pollution of the water ecosystem. This can be seen when the environment is engulfed with plant nutrients and elements such as nitrogen, phosphorus, or organic matter that can cause some negative changes to the ecosystem. This can be seen impacting the slaughterhouse industry since the amount of nutrients and waste products that are given off, like phosphorus, are typically unhealthy. So in the circle of life, the animals drink the water, we humans ingest the animals, and in the end become unhealthy because we have absorbed in our bodies the unhealthy nutrients. Some food processing industries, such as meat and vegetable processing, also contribute significantly to the phosphorus amount in the slaughterhouse industry. Even though the pollution may be due to the fluorine-tainted cleaning rather than the direct food waste, eutrophication in the end can be man-made or already prevalent in the ecosystem, but it will still lead to some type of pollution or eutrophication.
I'm going to talk about sustainability. So first, sustainability is about generating food at the production level that is enough to maintain the human population while using the least amount of resources. So on the board, I have written the most sustainable foods all the way to the least sustainable foods. So over here, we obviously have the lentils, the tomatoes, beans, broccoli, things like that. On this side, the least sustainable foods are all animal production industries. This side takes the most amount of resources to produce the smallest amount of meat. So I'll give you a comparison. So just the quarter-pound patty hamburger takes 53 gallons of fresh water to produce just that patty. It also takes 75 square feet of grazing or growing crops. And right down to the grain, which is probably the most inefficient use of grain that we could possibly use is in the beef industry. So in just that quarter-pound of patty, it takes 6.7 pounds of grain to produce one patty. Do you know what else 6.7 pounds of grain can produce? 7 loaves of bread. But think about how many people you can feed with 7 loaves of bread, how many people are starving on this earth. We can feed about 800 million people just by cutting back on our beef industry just in the United States. So one patty equals about 340 calories. Now, once again, this is just the meat and not the bread, the lettuce, everything else that comes with it. So one patty is about 340 calories. Okay, now let's look at the loaf of bread. One loaf of bread is about 1,700 calories. Making 7 loaves of bread, 12,418 calories. Produce 7 loaves of bread, how much water does it take? 3 gallons. It takes 3 gallons. It takes 53 gallons to produce 340 calories of hamburger.